So today's Guru Nanak Dev Ji's Gurupurab, and what I wanted to do was a Vijay honouring Guru Nanak's sort of no-nonsense, pragmatist approach to things. Through an example I came across on Instagram and sort of give a wider social commentary on Sikhs today. So what I've done is written out my Vijay, which I'll be reading through today in this video, but I've also going to be uploading it to Substack. And if you support the work we do, then consider a paid subscription, which helps us towards getting to a point where we can put our theories into practice. As always, I speak on no one's behalf but my own, nor do I accept anyone speaking on my behalf. Every Singh is a self-autonomous sovereign, and to think, speak or act in the name of another Khalsapanthi is a violation of this Guru-gifted sovereignty. So with that preamble sort of out of the way, let's get into it. So I'm going to start with reading out this post I came across on the Instagram, which I'll try and give a balanced view on. But let's first read it out. So it says, Sant Baba Nand Singh Ji explained the immense spiritual significance of celebrating Gurupurab. They shared that if one remains awake in devotion during the night preceding Guru Nanak Dev Ji's Gurupurab, for example from Tuesday night until Wednesday morning around 6 a.m., then every act of remembrance, prayer or bard done in that time carries 365 times the spiritual reward. So for example, one that equals the reward of 365 that, etc, etc. In essence, the entire night is filled with multiplied blessings, a sacred opportunity immense in Naam and celebrate the light of Guru Nanak Dev Ji. Now, again, to preface this, I don't want to be too harsh. It is a fundamentally nice message being said here. But the fact that you can assign fixed values to Bani is wild. It's not a stock market. The value of Gurbani doesn't go up and down depending on different days. Otherwise, this is saying on a Wednesday, one movement that is 100 spirituality points, and then the next day it drops down to 10. How can Gurbani drop in value? It's priceless. But if you are going to engage in some value calculations, perhaps the better one is something like this. One movement that done any day of the year with love and devotion is worth 1 billion whole Akhand parts that are just mumble-wrapped rapidly without care. But since I'm not a Buddha Mahapurush Sant Baba or whatever, I doubt my value proposition will hold as much weight for many. But the hypocrisy is clear nonetheless. The mere fact that I question the opinion of Baba Nand Singh would offend people and get me accused of disrespect. It's not how I disagreed. I can be as articulate and professional in my disagreement as possible, but it's the mere fact that I've disagreed at all that causes the outrage. But they will say nothing about the disrespect I am perceiving they are conducting against the Guru with how they are suggesting the value of Bani could be increased and lowered on particular days. And I get their motivation to do something special on Guru Nanak's Gurupurab, but I think a more valuable endeavour is to actually remember his teachings and his whole attitude of cutting through nonsense. He was literally travelling around the world to debunk nonsense like this. I also think it's worth appreciating the wider context here that the idea of celebrating Gurupurabs how we do today is a relatively modern thing. It was a way 20th century Sikhs were trying to differentiate themselves as a distinct community, clearly defined within boundaries of the Western post-colonial classification systems of what constitutes a religion. Prior to this, there was 4 main holidays Sikhs generally celebrated, namely Diwali, Dussehra, Hola and Vaisakhi. You could argue there's an insecurity element to this, but there's a more understandable motivation related to the changing world order. We went from empires and kingdoms to now nation-states and nationalism, and with it came a system of representative politics, where if your group was not adequately defined, you'd just be amalgamated with another group without any political representation of your own. And this is why it may have been important to fit Sikhi into a box at the time by getting rid of certain traditions and adding in new ones. So the motivation is completely understandable, and to be honest, the level of research conducted is also very commendable. But I don't think we have to be forced to operate as per the same pressures today, especially when we as a band have witnessed and experienced firsthand how much nationalism has actually benefited us in reality. We've become an irrelevant minority with a rich and respected history, sure, but largely stuck in the past and unable to create more history today. None of this is to say we shouldn't celebrate Gurupurabs. Indeed, the Khalsa has the authority to establish new holidays if it chooses to. The Khalsa is the Guru after all. But any changes we make to tradition need to be an improvement, not a regression. And I don't think Baba Nand Singh's Gurbani stock market idea is all that appropriate. Unless you can argue otherwise, and in fact, what I'll do is give you some arguments in favour as well. What something like this does is it may get more people to do some level of bhakti, and committing to do lots of it, quantity over quality, itself may be a form of true bhakti if a practitioner is genuinely doing it with good intent. It's just a shame they aren't really understanding what they are blindly reciting, and also pretty heavily ironic as well. But me questioning the legitimacy of their practice shouldn't really affect those with genuine intent. And this is a good way to test it as well. They should be so immersed in their practice that things like Krodh, anger, shouldn't be able to take root in the first place, which is the real sin here. The love and devotion will make you resistant to criticism and logical reasoning, just like it did with Bhagatanna, who worshipped a stone but still managed to realize oneness. It's the purity of intent that carries you across. Now this type of stuff works for gullible, simple-minded people like Bhagatanna was, And it's not a bad thing. In fact, people like this probably do have an easier time achieving mukti as well. But the issue today is that many people aren't simple-minded anymore. We are a very well-educated society. This is neither a good thing or a bad thing, it's just a different society now. So when you tell a child who has grown up in a modern education systems, learning about things like science for 5 days a week, for a good chunk of the day, years on end, only then to be occasionally brought to the Gurdwara to hear someone speaking our language they aren't as familiar with and told things like, if you do 100 japji salves, you'll get this or that. It's going to sound a bit ridiculous to them. It is a direct contrast to what they spend most of their time learning and developing a mindset out of. The tragic part of this is that Sikhi can and is compatible with this type of mindset too. It can flourish in highly educated environments, and we have plenty of proof of that in our history as well. But if modern Sikhs are constantly only exposed to a side of Sikhi that is dumbed down and tailored for illiterate societies, then they're going to grow up with many unresolved doubts, which is not how when you discourage free thinking, questioning, and debate as well. The Guru facilitated such spaces for this, so why are Sikhs today so insecure? You can't, on one hand, tell Sakhis of Guru Nanak debating yogis and debunking pilgrims performing blind rituals, and then on the other hand, stifle debate and questions in Sikh spaces today. It's contradictory, and people start to notice. The Gurus operated as supreme pragmatists and realists, critical thinkers who debated Brahmanvad, but today you have Sikhs behaving in very much the same way as those Brahmins. Also, just because a Baba said something, it doesn't make it infallible truth. Sikhi is about forming a relationship with the Guru, not middlemen. I am a Sikh of the Guru, not a Sant Baba this or Sant Baba that. Sants are only guidance, not gospel. Use them to inform your own understanding, not blindly directed. Sants are not a substitute for doing your own vichar. Listening to many diverse perspectives is critical in informing your own bespoke personal relationship you build with the Guru. This is what elevates a Sangat in becoming a Sad Sangat, as the sainthood property becomes emergent in the collective. You don't need to rely on any one individual to have it all, since instead you have many individuals, each on their own path, with their own experiences and unique points of view, you can learn from, both what has and hasn't worked. But many of the Sikh sants today are far too Bidi focused, which is fine, but Sikhi is a midi Bidi philosophy. There is as much need for saints in our Sangat as there are for generals. And again, I get why saying things like there's a special discount of Bhakti today resonates with people. We only really now are becoming educated en masse, but only a generation or two ago, most of us live in agrarian societies under regimes that weren't that conducive to economic development. And more fundamentally, a lot of this Santamat type thinking is a fear-based approach, similar to how nationalism is as well. This is particularly effective for the simple-minded, since it can be difficult to grasp concepts like oneness and the implications of it on things like free will or the lack thereof, ethics and suffering. Often people want to be comforted, especially during times of hardship that they do face. Religion is indeed a coping mechanism. So when you are told to do this, you get this, or you do that and you'll avoid that, this whole transactional way of looking at Bhakti plays into people's fears. They worry that if I don't do it, something bad will happen to me, or something even worse will happen than already has. So in their minds, they're just trying to be logical, even though it's fallacious, and say, well, might as well do it, there's no point risking it. But the value is only really there if you do something with love and devotion. You can't force love. And this isn't some magical thing either. It's literally because in love, you transcend the association with the self. You forget your own pleasure and pain, since your consciousness becomes so focused and attuned to not yourself, in other words, God. Then when you deepen this love to see God everywhere, in all things, you even see it within oneself, at which point you attain oneness. And I don't want to bash these Baba too hard for setting these Bhakti challenges either. I can see why a Baba might offer such transactional methods to his followers, since a lot of these Baba became prominent in a time where the Khalsa wasn't as present, to offer a more complete interpretation of Sikhi that balances both the Midi and Bidi, not just the Bidi, and also because most people would have been part of a simple agrarian society, largely uneducated, going through hardships of day-to-day life, and it shouldn't really surprise anyone why people are running away from farming. It's back-breaking work, no one likes doing it. But today, people are different. We also live in a lot more relative comfort, so we aren't in a fear mentality most of the time, at least not to the same extent. Very few of us are in poverty and can largely access a lot of what we need or want. It's just that our wants have grown bigger now, which is the issue, but in my opinion, that's a better issue to have. Lots more today are educated, can read and write, can access more information than ever before in history. We are constantly exposed to an extreme diversity of ideas and knowledge, so the simplistic stuff doesn't really work as well unless you keep yourself overly simple-minded too. This isn't a bad or good thing, it's just a different mode of operating. Each way has its own trade-offs and risks. I personally don't think it's strategic for Sikhs to stay so simple-minded in a time where the world is rapidly changing and the Khalsa is lagging in its duty. However, I recognize the risk of abandoning this simple-minded approach is that Sikhs can become egotistical, feel like they don't need to listen to anyone at all, and this can lead to nihilism if not handled well. Thinking for oneself requires a degree of responsibility, discipline, and seemingly paradoxically, humility. Why the latter? Because you need feedback to correct when you're wrong. Additionally, this is why I don't push, don't listen to Babbe, but instead say, listen to many Babbe and non-Babbe, join in Sangat and expose yourself to diverse views, vocalize your doubts, don't bury them. These are the ways to mitigate the risks of enlightening a population. And I've not made these measures up myself. This is what the gurus are doing. The guru provides you with a scaffolding or framework in which to structure your own thinking, hence what Gurmat really is, guru-guided intellect. They were not here to offer another opiate for the masses, they were sobering the masses from the drug of dogmatism already fed to them by Brahmanism and literalist interpretations of Islam. The same kind of drug we Sikhs today seem to be giving each other as we erect faulty pantic hierarchies, putting Babbe on pedestals to tell us nonsense and keep us comfortable in ignorance. This is why I think on a large part we are still dealing with the already realized risks of a simple-minded approach where many fake Babbe can adopt a certain aesthetic and manipulate people into keeping them into a state of subservience to them, clinging onto blind rituals, gatekeeping spirituality and distracting us with false displays of piety. I guarantee that if Guru Nanak was around now, a lot of the people celebrating his Gurupurab today would actually hate his guts. Guruji would be going around pointing out all sorts of nonsense the Panth today practice. During his own time, he was constantly hopping from one controversy to the next. He never shied away from debunking ideas and would debate anyone. No one was above questioning. He agitated the Muslims in Mecca by lying down with his feet towards the Kaaba. He questioned the Emperor Babur on his morality as a ruler. From Amirs to Peers, no one was safe from the Gyan Karak of Guru Nanak. And the reason why I'm so confident in stating this about the Panth today is because when many of us who recognize the Guru's nature and try to walk in their footsteps to whatever limited degree we can, we experience the very same kind of resistance described in Guru Nanak's stories. Even the reaction to this video is likely going to prove my point here. But it is changing. Just like Guru Nanak's time, many did start to wake up and recognize the truth. And we see so much of that today as well, and it gives us so much optimism. And if you don't believe me that the Panth today would be contested by Guru Nanak, like how he contested the Brahmins of his time, here's an experiment you could do. Go hunting, just like many of the gurus did, and get yourselves a deer. Take some of the venison alongside with a camping stove to your local Gurdwara, bonus points if it's on a special day like a Gurupurab, and then start cooking it outside so the scent of the venison fills the air. Then watch who comes out in anger to stop you. In response, you're going to say or play the shabad Mas Mas Kar Murukh Chakre. This shabad is the words of Guru Nanak when he did the exact same thing during his own time. During his travels through the legendary jungle of Kurukshetra, a hunter gifted the Guru some deer meat, upon which the Guru requests by Mardana to start a fire and get it cooking. The scent of the meat travelled to the nearby village, which angered all the Brahmins. They come out to him screaming about how it's an eclipse and some sort of special day that you can't eat meat on. That's when this shabad is revealed as a rebuke to them, showcasing how those who cause disputes about others eating meat are fools and know nothing about real spiritual wisdom. Now, some of you might be thinking, how dare you compare yourselves to the Guru? You fools, the Guru's not an idol to be worshipped blindly, but a role model to model your own life from. Why are you even a Sikh if you don't want to be like the Guru? What do you think the Gurus are doing here? They literally spent over 200 years cultivating and raising a population to their own level, to make them realize what they realize, that God was within all. And the Guru further gifts their Sikhs by assigning them with their own status. Hence why the Khalsa was made the Guru alongside the Guru Granth Sahib. This doesn't mean any one Singh is the Guru, just like no one individual is all of God. But each one is a part of that whole and imbued with that same essence. This is the project of Guru Nanak, to contest spiritual and political tyranny and instead establish spiritual and political liberty. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.